The Christ oil cycle, sometimes referred to as the colostrum cycle or sacred secretion, is an esoteric and biological concept that describes a little understood physiological and spiritual process which occurs monthly within the human body. It's very beneficial physically, psychologically, and spiritually when utilized knowingly. In these videos, I will show you how to take advantage of it. This cycle runs over a 2 to 3 day period every month. The timing of this cycle is based on the phases of the moon and your own individual astrological house. As such, the timing of the cycle changes every month, as does the moon's astrological movements. This cycle involves the secretion of a sacred oil from the brain's colostrum area. From a spiritual perspective, it can lead to personal transformation and spiritual development without the need for organized religions or initiation by a spiritual teacher. You will have a direct connection to what may be referred to as Godhead and the various spiritual currents of the world when you learn to use this process. It is possible that this process also allows DMT, a known psychedelic agent, to be produced naturally and released from the pineal gland. Interestingly, we can also see that DMT is the active ingredient in ayahuasca, which is well known to allow spiritual experiences. From a physical healing perspective, it is believed that the oil secreted during this process is what modern medical science would call cerebrospinal fluid, or CSF. CSF is known to support positively various biological functions in the human body, and especially those in the nervous system. The secretion is often called Christ oil, or chrism, and is thought to travel down one side of the spine and back up again over the course of the 2 to 3 day period. The human spine has a lot of spiritual significance as the axis containing our chakras and the very important vagus nerve system. Later, I will show you how to calculate when this 2 to 3 day period for yourself.
At the core of this cycle is the idea that the Christ oil activates dormant brain cells and/or enhances the pineal gland's function. This activation elevates one to a state of heightened awareness or enlightenment, often termed as Christ consciousness, a state of divine awareness or growing unity with the divine. Now let's discuss some of the spiritual concepts that are able to be developed with the Christ oil cycle. Your results may vary compared to those mentioned below, but let it serve as a menu of possible effects. 1. By engaging with this cycle, one can harness the body's natural healing capabilities. Physically, this can manifest as improved health or healing from various ailments. 2. Emotionally, it can cleanse the spirit of negative emotions, fostering peace and balance within. 3. Part of the spiritual journey involves addressing and clearing karmic patterns or debts. The Christ oil cycle is seen as a tool for spiritual growth, helping individuals to liberate themselves from the chains of past actions, thus facilitating a lighter, more enlightened path forward. 4. This cycle can awaken or enhance psychic faculties. By activating spiritual centers in the brain, individuals can experience heightened intuition or clairvoyance, opening new avenues for spiritual exploration and understanding. 5. Much like the legendary philosopher's stone, the Christ oil is seen as an internal alchemical agent. It transforms the mundane aspects of one's consciousness into something divine or enlightened, embodying the alchemical principle of turning lead into gold. This is probably able to be attributed to the DMT, which the process allows to be released naturally in the human brain. 6. The cycle also involves redirecting energies, usually associated with physical desires, into spiritual growth. This transmutation is central to many spiritual practices, aiming to elevate one's being beyond the material.
7. The journey of the Christ oil is symbolic of the soul's return to its divine origin, deepening one's connection with the universal consciousness, or the divine itself. 8. The practices surrounding the Christ oil cycle encourage a lifestyle of purity, love, and compassion, aligning with many spiritual teachings that advocate for moral and ethical growth. 9. Engaging with the cycle often involves rituals like fasting, meditation, or specific physical postures like those found in yogic practices to honor and facilitate this spiritual journey. These practices are seen as ways to prepare the body and mind for the transformative experience of the Christ oil's journey. In essence, the Christ oil cycle is viewed esoterically as a natural internal process that, when understood and respected, can lead to profound spiritual, physical, and mental transformations, echoing ancient wisdom, but applied in the modern quest for enlightenment. From a modern scientific standpoint, the claustrum is known to be highly connected within the brain, but its exact function remains somewhat mysterious. Some say the idea of it secreting an oil with spiritual properties lacks scientific backing, and they would be correct. As far as I'm aware, this hasn't been studied, but this is a trick of perspective played by the scientific community, in my opinion. It lacks scientific backing because they haven't studied it, and probably won't because there isn't good reason to confirm what is known anecdotally by esoteric practitioners. The modern scientific view of Christ oil is happy, however, to confirm the natural production of cerebrospinal fluid, aka CSF, which they find has essential roles in brain function. Skeptics and some scientists argue that esoteric interpretations are misreadings or overinterpretations of biological processes. They point out that while CSF does circulate in the body, attributing spiritual or mystical properties to it is not supported by conventional neuroscience or biology. That the mainstream view deliberately ignores the potential for DMT, a known psychoactive agent, to be involved is to be expected from a paradigm which doesn't recognize immaterial or hidden realities. This lack of recognition is to be expected at this time, and I'll explain why now.
For the most part, most people at this particular time on Earth are unable to understand the esoteric nature of the universe. According to Sri Yukteswar, this inability to recognize hidden realities is actually quite quantifiable and related to the Dharma available at any particular time on Earth. He says in his book, The Holy Science, published in the 1890s, that the light which comes to Earth via a little-known galactic sun carries with it a certain quality of Dharma, or an understanding of the true nature of reality, which when present in high enough quantities allows us to more easily understand and sense not only material but also immaterial realities. A galactic sun, he says, does not refer to the sun in our solar system, but a much larger galactic center which our galaxy revolves around. I note that modern science has confirmed some of what Sri Yukteswar has said. Anton Petrov, on his own YouTube channel, outlines how modern science has discovered that our Milky Way galaxy revolves around much larger galactic centers that he calls megastructures, and that these systems have their own suns. Sri Yukteswar says that the light from these galactic centers does reach Earth, but differs over time depending on where our galaxy is within its revolution of the larger galactic sun. In my opinion, this somewhat confirms some of the information Sri Yukteswar wrote in the concept of a galactic sun. I should note that in yogic science, they have a concept of yugas or time periods with which categorizes the general level of Dharma from this galactic sun. While debate is ongoing about exactly which yuga we are in now, most agree we are not at the highest ebb of Dharma, but probably in a Kali Yuga phase, or close to it depending on who you talk to. To come back to the modern scientific view, if you study philosophy of science literature and history, you can see that slowly over time, mainstream thought removed the concepts of hidden realities existing parallel to the material world. Slowly, it forced a sole focus on material and mechanical considerations. Hence, critiques of esoteric functions of the claustrum would naturally be too far of a stretch in our time, Kali Yuga, which has a low amount of Dharma. Some mainstream scientists like Sir Francis Crick thought that the claustrum area of the brain was the seat of consciousness. Conveniently, mainstream science sometimes marginalizes certain scientific findings and not others. Such is our time of Kali Yuga, but these views do not stop us from practicing Christ oil cycles and confirming anecdotally for ourselves that DMT is indeed produced in the human brain. I can attest to this, as I have used both exogenous DMT and Christ oil cycles and confirm they lead to very similar personal insights and transformations. In the previous lesson, we spoke a little about yugas and dharma coming to Earth via light from a galactic sun, which was many years later confirmed by modern science. Sri Yukteswar believed and described in his book, The Holy Science, that the planets and celestial bodies of our solar system and universe are all very deliberately designed to affect our lives on Earth. In this lesson, we will focus on our moon and how it impacts the Christ cycle and production of cerebrospinal fluid as well as DMT in our bodies naturally. The Vedics of ancient India were more wise compared to us now in certain ways, owing to their existence during a particular time in history, when the Dharma at that time allowed them to understand the universe in both material and immaterial paradigms. Luckily for us, many traditions have recorded these learnings, and we have been able to learn from them in these times of lower Dharma like now. Without such passing down of information, we would be very much in the dark spiritually. In this lesson, I will show you how to understand the moon's phases to know when exactly the Christ oil cycle is for you personally. To recap, a Christ oil cycle is a 2-3 day period of time, which occurs every month, which allows your body to produce and propagate very beneficial compounds in and around your body. The Christ oil cycle of 2-3 days can be determined by knowing 1. Your astrological birth house, and 2. When the moon is in your astrological birth house. We will use a moon's phase calendar to calculate the Christ cycle for you. Please note, every month you want to do a Christ oil cycle, you should recalculate it as it changes every month with the moon's changing astronomical phases. Let's start by figuring out your astrological birth house in sidereal astrological calendar. This is the calendar the ancient Vedics of what we would now call India used to understand astrological events. Note, there are two main astrological calendars in use today, the Vedic and the Western. Western people will often use the Western calendar, but it is preferred in my experience to use the sidereal or Vedic calendar. If you use the Western, you will still be able to take advantage of the Christ oil cycle, but try to use the Vedic if you can. In the video description below, you can find a link to a sidereal astrological calendar. Click the link and enter in your birth date information to find your Vedic astrological birth house. Once you have done this, take your birth house, for example Cancer, and then open the second link below to the moon phase calendar. In the moon phase calendar, you will need to select the month you want to calculate the Christ oil cycle for, and then click on the links in each segment of the calendar to find the start of the period of time when the moon is said to enter your particular astrological house. Here is an example. If calculating for a Cancer in February 2025, we would click on the links in each segment or day of the calendar until we find the link which tells us we are entering Cancer. This day and time will mark the beginning of your Christ oil cycle for February 2025. In the same calendar, look 2 to 3 days ahead and click the links again to see when the moon is leaving Cancer. This will mark the end of your Christ oil cycle for February 2025. That's it. You have now correctly calculated when your next Christ oil cycle is. In the coming lessons, we will discuss how to prepare for this 2 to 3 day period to maximize its effectiveness for physical healing and spiritual development. In order to allow the release and travel of the Christ oil and related DMT in your body to be much more effective, we can change our diet of food and drink in order to make our bodies have what is known as an alkaline state. Alkalinity is a property of water, in this case, water in our bodies, that measures our body's ability to neutralize acids and bases and maintain a stable pH level. We can measure this via what is known as a pH level. An alkaline state is the opposite of acidic and helps the process immensely in my and other people's experience. When we eat animal products, sugar, and processed foods, we make our bodies more acidic, and this stops the Christ oil from traveling through your nervous system because these foods are acidic in pH value and stops the process. Therefore, it is of utmost importance during preparation that we achieve an alkaline state by altering our diet and furthermore by our habits and practices. We can find similar techniques in other spiritual practices as well, which ask us to remove certain foods. For example, the Vedic practices of ancient India often require students to remove animal products from their diet. Instead, they eat a vegetarian diet. In ayahuasca preparation, they also try to achieve an alkaline state in order to more safely and effectively utilize the psychoactive properties of DMT. So, for between 2 to 7 days before the Christ cycle, look to reduce acidic types of foods and promote alkaline ones. Based on my experience, the more strict you can be with this diet, the more effective your results will be. In the description below, you will find a link to my website where there is both a list of foods to remove and free recipes you can use to prepare. Let's start with some spiritual context. When we are leveling up in our spiritual practices, we also should look for protection from negative entities, which are incentivized to stop us from raising our spiritual understanding and vibration. Negative entities literally gather energy from sources of negative energy, and when we are early in our spiritual progression, we can be a source of negative energy for these entities due to having a low vibration full of negative thoughts and emotions. Christ oil cycles allow you to reduce these kinds of emotions over time as well as greatly raise your vibration and psychic powers. Hence, negative entities are incentivized to scare you off of your newfound spiritual development because any negative entities around you will literally have less energy sources to sustain themselves. In my experience, low-level negative entities might try to scare you off your path by coming to you in your dreams, or indeed physical reality via other people or circumstances which negatively affect you. As such, we can take some steps to increase protection and reduce the chances of these negative interactions from happening. I should note that there are many ways and different intensities of how one might ward off negative entities. The spiritual hygiene practices I discuss here have seen me through my own encounters, but your mileage may vary. Feel free to reach out to the community if you have issues these don't address. Link below to our community platforms or drop a comment below. Practices to improve our spiritual hygiene? 1. Keep clean living areas and places you spend significant amounts of time, especially your house and bedroom where you sleep. Dirty environments promote negative entities. 2. Use aromatherapy to make your living environments have a pleasant smell. This raises the vibration of your energetic field. This is why burning sage is so popular. Note, don't use chemicals or commercial and store-bought air fresheners, as these are more than likely toxic. Natural herbs and incense only. 3. Take pink Himalayan salt, add it to fresh water, and sprinkle this over your forehead in the morning while showering. Salt has natural spiritual protection abilities, as does garlic. You could also sprinkle some with your fingers over any space you wanted, like the bed, etc. 4. You can do mantra chanting or meditate on positive concepts like love to raise your vibration. As discussed, negative entities gain energy from your negative energies. So when we raise our vibration with a meditation on love, we remove the energy with which they sustain themselves, and they naturally move on to lower hanging fruit. In order to integrate love into your meditation, start meditating or chant a mantra and focus on all the things which caused you to feel love previously. Love from family members, pets, community, divine connections you've experienced in the past, etc. Think of them and replay them in your mind and remember the feeling for as long as you can. Even 10 to 15 minutes can mean a great shift in your vibration. 5. Eat a diet that does not include processed foods, but instead organic and natural choices. Using the recipes in the previous 2 lessons will help a lot. This raises the vibration of your energetic field positively. During the 2-3-day period of the Christ oil cycle, your activities will ideally change to include certain ones which are more conducive to internal alchemy. Activities to exclude or reduce. 1. Exclude activities which make your body acidic, like heavy weightlifting or intense physical exercise. Exercise should be relatively gentle, like walking and/or yin yoga. 2. Remove activities and influences which make you angry or overly emotional. This could include podcasts or news shows on topics which make you angry, but could also be spending time with people who trigger you. 3. Anger and strong negative emotions can cause acidity in the body, and this will interrupt the Christ oil its travels. 4. Diet-wise. I discussed in the previous videos that you should be removing foods and drinks from your diet which cause your body to be acidic. Alkaline diet recipes are good to eat during this period. 5. Reduce drastically the time spent on your phone or in fact any screens in general. Activities to promote. 1. Promote an alkaline diet. 2. It is also possible to fast through the 2-3-day period of your cycle, but in the days preceding and afterwards eat as per the alkaline diet. I'll cover fasting in the next section. 3. Meditation or prayer. 4. Yin yoga. 5. Time in nature. It's very grounding. 6. Reading a physical book on a spiritual topic. 7. Journaling, listening to or playing music, classical style, soft of binaural beats type music, doing art like drawing or painting. 8. I suggest at least 1 hour or outdoor time, ideally during the day, to maximize sunlight exposure. 9. Reduce social time to a minimum. Three, community. If you have access to a spiritual community or mentor, engage with them for support or guidance. 4. Balance. While the focus is on spiritual growth, ensure you're not neglecting physical health or daily responsibilities. The goal is harmony between the spiritual and material. Fasting is seen as a way to purify the body and soul, making room for the sacred secretion to work its transformative magic. It's believed to help in conserving and enhancing the energy of the Christ oil. How to approach fasting. 1. Preparation. Gradually reduce your intake of heavy processed foods before the fast begins in order to ease your body into the process.
In the previous lessons, I have suggested 2 to 7 days of preparation before your cycle starts with an alkaline diet to allow the propagation of the Christ oil around your body effectively. 2. Duration. I suggest you try to fast for the entire 2 to 3 day Christ oil cycle period, but you could if you want to do intermittent fasting. Yet another alternative would be to do a 24 or 48-hour fast within the cycle. Fasting can be hard, so do here what you can. 3. Breaking the fast. Break your fast gently with light, easy to digest foods like fruits or broth. Avoid jumping into heavy meals or carbs and animal products. 4. Physical considerations. Women especially need to take extra caution when attempting to fast for long periods, as they have different hormonal needs compared to men. See the link below for more information on the specifics of this. If fasting for long periods like 2 to 3 days is not favorable for you as a female, then use intermittent fasting. 5. Hydration. Drink plenty of mineral water. Electrolytes. Consider adding a pinch of salt or electrolyte supplements if you feel weak or dizzy. 6. Listen to your body. If you experience severe discomfort, dizziness, or any health concerns, you should reconsider your approach or consult with a health professional. In my experience, in the third day of a 72 hours fast, I can feel dizzy if I exercise too much, so try to take it easy. 7. If you do decide to fast during the Christ cycle, then you are able to drink coriander seed tea, chamomile tea or green tea, and clean mineral water. Electrolytes without sugar in water. Don't consume sweet Gatorade-style drinks. I also sometimes add some Himalayan salt to clean mineral water if I can't find electrolytes. Avoid coffee if you can, as it's actually acidic. In a normal fast scenario, coffee is considered fine, but when we are attempting to create an alkaline state, the acidity is not what we want. Spiritual development within the context of the Christ oil cycle, as described in esoteric teachings, can manifest in various subjective experiences and sensations, though these are highly personal. Here's what it might feel like for you. Consider this a menu of possible experiences, not that you will necessarily have all of them. Each individual is different. Personally, I increase in psychic nature and have a lot of synchronicities, lessons, and insights during these times, especially if I fast through a cycle. 1. Increased awareness. There's often a sense of heightened awareness or consciousness. This might feel like an expansion of the mind or a deeper understanding of self and the universe. 2. Energy movement. Practitioners might feel energy moving through the spine, often described as a warm, tingling sensation or a flow of energy ascending from the base of the spine to the crown of the head. This is the journey of the Christ oil throughout your spine. 3. Peace and tranquility. As the cycle progresses, one might experience profound peace, a sense of calm, or even bliss, which is attributed to the purification of the mind and body by the sacred secretion. 4. Connection to the divine. There can be moments of feeling a deep connection or unity with a higher power, the divine, or the universe, akin to what might be described as Christ consciousness. Note, this is not Christ the man influencing you, but the fundamental elements of the universe like love, compassion, and service to others, which characterize higher spiritual evolution and planes. 5. Physical sensations. Some report physical sensations like vibrations, warmth in the head or spine, or even a feeling of lightness or floating, which is probably related to the DMT which is produced at this time also. Note, it doesn't result in hallucinations like some other forms of DMT like ayahuasca. 6. Emotional cleansing. Emotional states might shift with feelings of release, forgiveness, or joy, as if emotional blockages are being cleared. This could feel like a burden lifting or a sense of emotional renewal. I personally get this a lot also. 7. Intuition and insight. An increase in intuitive insights or psychic abilities might be noticed, where one feels more in tune with their inner voice or receives guidance more clearly. 8. Healing. There might be a sense of healing, either physical or emotional, where past ailments or emotional wounds seem to lessen or heal. This is likely attributed to the cerebrospinal fluid released during a cycle. 9. Psychological and spiritual shifts. Transformation. The cerebrospinal fluid and DMT cause transformation.
This might manifest as a shift in one's perspective on life, values, or identity, moving towards a more spiritually aligned existence. 10. Renewal. The cerebrospinal fluid and DMT causes individuals to feel as though they're undergoing a renewal of self, leading to a new way of being in the world. 11. Alchemical process. The process can feel like an internal alchemy, where one's lower nature, symbolized by lead in alchemy, is being transformed into a higher, enlightened state, symbolized by gold. A Christ oil cycle can also come with challenges. 1. Resistance and purging. Spiritual development isn't always smooth. It can also involve periods of resistance, where one might face inner conflicts, detox symptoms, or confront past traumas as part of the purification process. 2. Periods of darkness. Before enlightenment, there might be periods of introspection or a sense of facing one's shadow, which can be challenging but is seen as necessary for growth. An intention is a goal or outcome or topic which we want to focus on or learn about in particular when using a particular practice. We can use intentions to guide a Christ oil cycle to a particular aim. How can I use an intention in a colostrum cycle? You can use practices like meditation, journaling, or other contemplative practices to develop an intention. While doing these practices, try to notice topics, themes, or emotions that you find problematic and would like help with, or that you want to promote, love, for example. Another way to do this is to simply ask out loud or in your mind. I am doing this Christ oil cycle with a particular intention to X, Y, or Z, and I would like help in doing so from any Christ consciousness aligned forces which can support and guide me. This will align your practice to this goal. By asking for entities aligned with Christ consciousness only to interact with you, we lower the possibility of negative entities contacting you. In combination with good spiritual hygiene, discussed in a previous lesson, this should ensure you are only in contact with positive beings. If you want to use another phrase other than Christ consciousness, that's fine also. Another phrase might be Most High. When you are in the 2 to 3 day Christ oil cycle, or in the days either side of it also, you can recite this intention to yourself during your meditations, or write it as something to focus on in your journaling. This will sit in your subconscious and guide your experience. If it is your first Christ oil cycle, then I'd suggest you don't set an intention. Sometimes setting an intention can make you focus too much on a particular outcome, and often when we do this, we don't get what we want. If you can avoid this, then I see no problem. When setting an intention, you may not specifically get an answer in the actual cycle, such is the nature of such requests. We must remember not to push for answers too hard. Simply make the intention known during the cycle and then go about following the rules of the practice without dwelling on the result. We shouldn't ask again and again out of frustration for not receiving a result. We simply ask calmly for help during our process and trust that the universe has heard us. Believe me, it has. We may get answers and results in days, months, or years to come, but rest assured you were heard. In my experience, help often comes in ways we don't fully understand, or even months later as life unfolds. Not using an intention in a colostrum cycle, it's also possible to ignore the deliberate setting of an intention and just let karma and our higher path play out. I have been doing this recently, and I love it because I often don't know what I don't know, and simply allowing the universe to guide me can be very enlightening in terms of it leading you where you may not have thought to look previously. I simply focus on keeping my pH balanced, practicing various spiritual rituals, and let the insights come to me. It works very well for me. At the end of your Christ cycle, you might enjoy having a full meal if you were fasting, but try to keep the same alkaline diet for 2 to 7 days after the cycle has ended. This will gradually allow your body to come out of it, instead of going straight back to processed foods and animal products. Integration of learnings. It's possible that you have learned something quite profound and/or emotional about yourself, and you may need a few days or even weeks to process it in various ways. These learnings make you feel positive or negative for a time. In the case you are experiencing some strong negative emotions, then I advise you not to take any rash actions and just let things settle for some days or weeks.
For example, in one of my recent cycles, I learned that I was likely a late diagnosed ADHDer, and while this was welcome in some respects, it also made me emotional and angry/upset for a few days. I wrote a few emails that I didn't end up sending as I was angry and wrote hurtful things to people close to me. I needed some time to adjust to what I had learned. So, how did I process these emotions? Writing or journaling can as such be a useful way to process emotions and feelings after receiving insights. Confiding in a friend or loved one can also be a great way to release emotions in a supportive way. I would advise against discussing this with acquaintances or people you don't know very well. Letting the emotions settle and not reacting too soon helped me to see positives of a late-stage ADHD diagnosis. Within a week or so, I had integrated it and become okay with it. I was emotional because I figured someone surely should have noticed and helped me. I felt abandoned a little, which made me angry. In a few days afterward, it also occurred to me that if I had known when I was younger, doctors probably would have just put me on medication, and I'm quite sure my family would have not understood how to deal with it well.